Well, time now for a check of weather with Drew Lerner of World Weather. Drew, I feel like a broken record because every single week on the show lately, we've been talking about these impressive rainfall totals, too much in some areas. And this week was no exception to that.
Boy, that is exactly right. Nobody would have thought 3 months ago that we were going to have this much rain occurring across key crop areas, especially in the southern half of the plains and in the Delta and Tennessee River Basin. Just in the last 10 days, we've had just a crazy amounts of rain. Last weekend we saw those 2 to 5 inch totals that occurred across a big part of the Kansas, Oklahoma, and northern Texas area and right on over into the Delta and the Tennessee River Basin. And that's the same area that's been hit multiple times in the past, maybe not so much in hard red winter wheat areas, but that mid-south region just getting clobbered with one rain event after the other. And flooding has been an issue. And of course, we have prevent plant in front of us at this point now, where there's going to be abandonment in parts of the lowermost parts of the Midwest, but especially that northern Delta area. And we've had some rain in the northern plains. That's been really good. I think you would probably agree. They were a bit dry earlier on and they got some really decent rains, but all of this has been greater than what was expected.
Now, you mentioned the Mid-South, and we're going to get into that later in the show. It is devastation down there, what they're dealing with prevent plant, unprecedented. But let's look over the next 10 days. Is this pattern starting to change?
Boy, we'd like to think so. I think we're on the cusp of it, but we've got another 10 days to go. Unfortunately, at least a week. I think the models are a little bit too wet, to be honest with you, with the second week outlook. So a lot of the rain you see here on this chart in the southern plains in Texas, in particular, over into the lower parts of the Delta, I think this may be a little bit overdone. This is the European forecast model for the 10 days ending June 8th. And I think we can probably drop some of that rain in the far south. What should happen as we move forward in time is that we should end up shifting everything to the north. We're going to have a little bit of ridge building in the middle of the country that should help to push the pattern northward. So I'm looking for the lower parts of the Midwest and the southeastern states to probably end up with a little better scenario as we go out in certainly in the second half of this month. I can't see how this is going to continue all the way through the month of June.
Yeah, we're also watching some heat, and I know some potentially record-breaking heat coming this week in some areas. But let's look at the rest of June, because we've been talking about drought. We've been talking about heat. Do you think that shows up in June?
We have so much moisture in the soil right now that I don't think that we can get excessively hot like we have in past years, because the ground is so warm, so wet. As we heat up the ground, we're going to pull that moisture out of the soil and we're going to add humidity to the air. So yeah, it'll be a warmer than normal summer, but it's not going to be excessively hot. It will be humid. Our nighttime lows will definitely be above average. And the afternoon highs will probably be a little warm too, but they're not going to be excessively hot. Now, precipitation wise, because we're off to a real wet start in the first week of June, we're going to have a little bit of a wetter bias in the lower Midwest. The northern plains, though, will turn wetter as we go into the second half of this month, as we shift everything to the north. And the one area that's probably going to be drier biased will be Nebraska and parts of Iowa. And those areas, of course, were previously dry. They recently got some nice rain, but they are going to reverse themselves back into a drier mode. So overall, for the key crop areas in the central part of the U.S., it certainly doesn't look like a terrible growing season, at least for the month of June. We should get a little bit of reversal to take place.
Drew Lerner, World Weather, thank you so much for joining us. Well, the market is watching weather, but we're also watching a big court ruling this week that could block tariffs out of the Trump administration. What impact could that have on the markets? We're talking with our market analysts next.